the transects that were previously monitored by Austin Environmental
Yes.
and prior to that by Biotech.
Biotech established.
And then we figured out that these weren't in the
We
right
don't own
places
them,
and.
right.
Yeah, okay.
We can't do
Right.
anything about them.
Right.
So, yeah. So what Catherine's going to do is proposing to do is reestablish new, and not really transects, but yeah. if you wanna-
Monitoring sites.
Sites.
And protocol for that. And I have talked to the compliance reviewer for South Florida, Stefan, and he said he would like to have a written proposal of the new protocol so that he could just have it in file and know exactly what it was that we were proposing to do. Yes.
So you had approximately 23 sites, but we're mentioning 10 in your report. So I
Right,
just
there
had
are
a
10
question.
Wetlands
There are 10
that we
wetlands,
have control.
but
over.
there are multiple locations for
Within-
monitoring based on the invasive species that we've observed occurring in those areas that we felt needed to be tracked. And some of those were pointed out specifically by district staff where they noted some areas in wetland 4 that were particularly densely invaded by the climbing fern and that those tracked. Although in conversation with Stefan, it was clear that, of course, the district is also concerned with other highly invasive species that would jeopardize the health and long-term, well-being and diversity of the various wetlands that have to be monitored. And so we, based on what we toured and what we looked at and walked into, we could see areas that had been treated, areas where there was dense climbing fern, dense kogon grass, and bands around the outside of Brazilian pepper, pretty densely sections of Brazilian pepper around there, those being the most invasive of the species that occur here. There
Brazilian
are
pepper is a new arrival here. Hadn't heard that one.
No,
No,
it's not new.
Brazilian pepper has clearly been here for a
Oh,
while.
no, I know what Brazilian pepper is, but it's the first time I hear of it being in Harmony.
Well, from the amount that there is, it's probably been here for a while. Same with the kogon grass.
And now we're looking in new areas
yeah.
and finding it.
Yes, we are, and it's also spreading, as will the climbing fern. Fortunately, yes, they do spread very rapidly, and fortunately, the climbing fern has been able to be treated more thoroughly this year, since about July, I think. And you can tell that there is some big difference having been made, but still, there are many areas within the wetlands where the climbing fern is up toward the canopy, threatening to top the canopy and then kill the trees.
I have a question based on your report. and Maybe I'm getting ahead of things, but just in case I'm not. One of the issues mentioned several times in your report was that there are areas that the CDD does not own that are heavily affected by some of these exotic invasives. And that creates a problem for the CDD because we're constantly going to have to battle the incursion of those. And so I wanted to know what, if anything, can we do about that aside from just having to beat it back constantly?
Yeah, establishing a perimeter where you can and treating what you've got. Of course, the big problem with climbing fern is that it spreads by spores. So anytime there's a big hurricane or a lot of significant wind events, it'll spread around. And if you clean yours all up, you're in good shape, but the surrounding areas where it still occurs are going to be a contributing problem. I don't know how to tell you to deal with that, except, maybe cooperation, see some of the other landowners, property owners, managers can participate in a larger scale treatment.
Also, I spoke with Stefan here, who is our water management district. He is investigating again why our conservation areas are still privately held and trying to put pressure on the private owners to also do a concerted effort with us.
They already,
Are they
Landowners
obligated
do we
to?
have?
The bulk of them is strictly Florida Harmony land.
Harmony, Florida land.
How many Florida?
Harmony Florida lands.
Sunterra,
Yes.
Mhm.
largely
So-
around the lake area, probably.
Well, yeah, they're the ones to the far northeast end of the lake.
To that point, don't they get
To the north,
cited by
yeah.
South Florida Water?
Yeah, they're the
That was my
enforcement
question.
authority, right?
Again, we're the responsible entity, but because they have not turned over ownership, again, Stefan is looking into enforcement action against the actual landowner.
That's clearly what we need.
Yes, then
So-
maybe there can become some cooperative effort.
Yes.
So with regard to the climbing fern, the lygodium, we have targeted areas where those are the most dense. Some of the areas where they were clearly being fairly well treated, as much as staff could handle that so far. I have spoken to a couple of different vegetation management contractors that we work with about how it's best controlled, what the protocol is. And it looks like that is being followed as far as
Mhm.
cutting a swath, a wide swath, and spraying what's at the bottom, and the rest will die. But there's only so much you can do. And once you get into rainy season, then it becomes even more difficult, because you have the storms blowing the spores and seeds around. You have scheduling issues with getting people on the ground when the wetlands are flooded, when the rains prevent you from working and spraying, when it's windy and you can't spray. So this time of year is really important time to get some additional treatment done for these areas. So that is the lygodium, and that is a big problem. The other one is the Brazilian pepper, and we did notice that not all of the outer edges have the Brazilian pepper. It tends to come in where there's disturbance and then invade from the edges into the natural communities. And once it's established, it's a network, a maze like mangrove roots, branching, rubbery, irritating to skin. It's allelopathic, so it's killing and shading out whatever's under it. And it just becomes a wider and wider problem as it invades into the natural community and displaces whatever is there. The Kogan grass is probably as much of a, so the Brazilian pepper can be managed. It's typical, we hack and squirt control, where you cut the bases and then you herbicide the trunks, and then it kills the plant, and you have the dead standing biomass, which is really unsightly if you want to have an attractive looking edge to the golf course and your wetlands that are really important elements within the whole development.
Well, we're used to the unsightly after effect throughout the property, because when you cut the climbing fern and spray it, it just turns into this brown
Right.
mass. It's a mess. So
So
to the point of the Brazilian, it's gonna be more brown mess.
well, there are other ways to deal with the Brazilian pepper. You could have someone mulch it, and end up with a wide band of mulch around the edges of the wetlands. And then as the new ones emerge, those could be sprayed when they're lower. And so that standing dead biomass is, really minimal. But of course, then it's the whole mulching process to start with. The Kogan grass comes in on contaminated fill or contaminated equipment. And with the amount of fill that was, around the edges of these wetlands, it's not surprising that it was invading into the edge of it. It will spread down. It's kind of slowed when there's a lot of shade or when the ground is inundated, but it doesn't stop it completely, and the rhizomes will continue to spread. It spreads mostly rhizomatously, a little bit by seeds, but where it is in areas where it can spread rhizomatously, even if you're mowing the top, even if you're spraying the top, it still requires repeated application. So repeated monitoring and continuous monitoring. And we saw that much of it is, of course, along the edges where the fill has been related to the development, the construction of the golf course, but it is not limited to the boundaries. It actually runs under the cart paths and under the fairways. And while it's being mowed there, so it's not very noticeable, it is either spreading from where there's landscaped areas within the golf course where it is among the dwindling number, apparently, of ornamental grasses and other plants, and is spreading from there, under the areas that are being mowed and out into the edge of the natural communities. So it seems like some effort is necessary there along the edges of the natural communities to cut that back, bring it back. And it's usually a repeated applications that went on properties that we have dealt with where they've had Kogan grass, maybe not to this extent. The most effective route has been to herbicide it at the right time of year, which is usually the best time is September, but not that you shouldn't treat it the rest of the year. And then let that die back where it's obviously apparently dead, cut it down, remove that dead biomass, and then wait for it to regenerate to 10 or 12 inches, then spray that again. And that repeated over a period of time does at least appear to slow the growth or limit the rhizome spread some. I don't think that I have the information on exactly, the comparison of how that works, but still it's a big problem, and it's not only in your natural areas, it's coming and going to continue to come from the golf course areas, it appears.
But we can't require the golf course to treat, can we?
We can treat along the conservation areas that we control, and we do control the two conservation areas.
Is that the only area you see that is along the
But
golf course?
no, it's also along a lot of our other conservation areas.
No.
Right away with the highway.
And on the right of way of the highway.
Right,
very
it's
much so.
widespread in
And
Florida
it's,
and a huge problem.
Yeah.
So
at the
it's along,
button
it's
bush.
along, it's along the roads. It's the tall stuff that has all
And
the
it's new
leaves
for
come
the
up
whole
from the
area.
bottom.
It's just blanketing our right of
It
way.
becomes, when it goes to seed, it has white
Those
fluffy
white
seed
tiny
heads
seed
Yeah.
heads, right.
And the middle ridge, the mid ridge is off.
off center.
It's very sharp on the sides like
Yeah.
sawgrass.
Yeah.
So it's a big problem, and it will displace native vegetation. It will crowd out herbaceous vegetation and eventually shrubs and even trees at some point, so that that's all there is. So you have the climbing fern threatening the canopy, the Brazilian pepper, spreading in from the edges, and the Kogan grass surrounding things. And it seems like the previous protocol for monitoring wasn't really occurring in enough places such that that was maybe observed frequently enough and coordinated with maintenance staff so that it could be controlled before it got to this extent. This is really pretty bad.
And the thing I was noticing in your proposal was that it even goes further than just the monitoring, where you're going to coordinate with our staff at least quarterly
True.
to advise them and to work with
Mhm.
them on the treatment.
Yes.
And also following their treatment progress.
And then meeting with
with
district
water
staff
management staff.
after the reports are submitted to go over areas that they still had concerns about, or areas that they had questions about, and look at the treatment that's being done and what the progress has been, what the diversity is doing, and if things are coming back in areas where there's been successful treatment, or if more is necessary.
It
So-
sounds like a good point.
And then, so twice a year on site,
Mhm.
traversing the area, taking pictures, collecting data, and then once a year, the report. And then in between those monitoring visits, coordinating with the maintenance people, whoever's doing maintenance, internal, external, and getting records of when they maintained and what areas and what the chemicals they were using. Just a kind of a full report of what maintenance is being done. And it wasn't clear to me in the previous reports that that had been done, but it seems like it's a useful thing in knowing what they see, what they're encountering in the field, and what we might want to look at more closely or monitor more frequently. Usually twice a year is adequate to collect enough data to satisfy the district criteria. And certainly your overall cover is there's been no quantitative measurement. It would take a lot of effort to GPS
Mhm.
all the edges of the polygons where these are occurring. But and your permit requires 10% or less cover of invasive exotic species, primarily class 1 and class 2 species, as the state describes them. And without any quantification, I don't know where you are, but from visually estimating, it looks like it's way out of control in the areas where they occur. And those species are particularly threatening to the native habitats.
And they
So
do
should,
cause a fire hazard.
so should, in the interest of time, since it's
Mhm.
already after 8, would it be useful to make a motion to approve the addendum to the agreement with
Yes.
Bowman and Blair, which is for a 4-year total for setting up monitoring and transects, conducting new baseline monitoring reporting, and annual monitoring for a 4-year total of $20,200.
That would be for the years. It'll be another 6,000 to set up the stations and everything. So it's a total of
So I
26,740
think, yeah,
for full 5 years.
the first year is more because
It's
we have
more
to set
labor
up the
intensive.
areas and do some early coordination with Stefan. And then the years subsequent to that
Uh-huh.
are reduced because we don't have
That's
to
So
set.
moved.
26,000 per year or?
No, that's
No,
for the
that's for
5
years.
years.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? No opposition?
Thank you very much. And I would just like to urge you to look at your maintenance and your vegetation management protocol teams, internal, external people, because this is a very important time of year to get something in there, get started on,
Really getting in.
yeah, we can get some of the
So,
winning back before the rainy season.
there was somebody that you work with, and perhaps you can be in touch with them about providing a proposal.
Oh, right, that's
How many
right.
do we have with license?
Bill Snively from Aquatic,
So they can work
what
on
is
it.
his company name? Aquatic Weed Management, did come along on the site visit with us, and I understand that he can have a proposal maybe by next week. I don't know exactly. And I do know that it addresses these invasives in some of the ways that we've talked about
Mhm.
tonight. And I don't know the details of that. I've not seen the proposal,
Okay,
or
so
seeing the
we'll wait to
details,
see what he
but I know that,
has
but
for
that
us.
the mulching of the Brazilian pepper was his idea. There are many companies who do vegetation management. And I don't know if you want to solicit prices from some others.
Mhm.
And there are a number that we've worked with that we don't necessarily choose to work with now. If we have opportunity to recommend for projects.
Mhm.
And Bill's company is one that we have worked with on larger projects a number of times. So we'd be happy with them. But there's others out there that we may not have experience with. It might do also a good job.
Great.
Thank you.
One
so much.
last quick question.
Yes.
It's sort of related to CDD matters. This new invasion of tropical chickweed, is it on the radar of the state, or?
Not yet. I think it's probably one of those that's still being looked at to see if it'll be classified as a class 2 invasive exotic, where they suspect it could threaten native ecosystems before the bigger classification of class 1. There are a number of plants that are in that same period of scrutiny.
Right.
And
It-
yeah.
Asiatic false hawksbeard is probably amongst them.
I don't know about that one, but I know that there are other, you have some here, you have some class 2s, Caesar weed.
Right,
Right.
right.
And I've noticed some of the
The grapevine?
larger. The
'Cause
native
we were a tree.
grapevine is,
It's native.
it is native, and it comes in where there's new edges. It takes advantage of the light in the new edges. So it's not something that would be required to be retreated. It's something that's, some people feel like they don't like the aesthetics of it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I just asked about the tropical chickweed because it seems to be taking over a lot of the Bahia areas in our
Mhm.
community.
I've seen it.
And it is, the seed issue is just mind boggling, especially if you have a pet.
If only we could get our sod to grow as well as the invasives.
Okay, but you might want to look at a different sod because
Yeah,
your
we
ground
are.
elevations are such that in
soil.
some areas your soil is pretty dry and you might want to look at centipede instead of Bahia
I like
or,
this.
Bermuda because it does really well with very little irrigation and very little treatment. And it only grows about that tall and you
Never
don't
mow
have to
it,
mow it
no.
like maybe once a year.
Wow.
It's not
It is,
native,
it's sweet,
but it's
wonderful.
not invasive.
It's great.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
You did well.
Appreciate
Thanks for waiting.
District engineer,
Like you
thank
had
you
to
so
do it.
much.
Well, no, it was good. It was entertaining.
We fixed that.
It was good to see how you all interacted.
All right, real quick in the last 5 topics, Garden Road, the county approved it. South Florida gave us a permit exemption. Florida Gas Transmission approved the plans. They gave us a encroachment agreement. Tim and I have looked at it. I looked at it from an engineering point of view. Tim's looked at it from a, I guess if you want to call it an exposure to the CDD point of view. We both feel it's a document that's typical of Florida Gas Transmission. Plans are done, cost estimates done. So depending on the direction of the board, whether to execute it with FGT, we can then advertise for bids and get that Garden Road finally repaired with the 18 inches of recycled concrete.
You've seen the mess that's going on there with the water pipe and all
All
that.
right.
What's the timeframe? Do you know?
Well, assuming that you approve to sign the agreement, or have the chairman sign the agreement and give it back to FGT, we can start advertising, soliciting bids, and hopefully get 2 bids back next
Yeah.
month to entertain.
Do we necessarily want to do our road while they're right there with that mess? or
I
do we
prefer to
wanna
get them out of there before I don't want their heavy equipment busting up the new road.
Right,
So-
that's,
So,
we gotta watch that timeframe.
Jim, I'm sorry.
No, and I'm sorry to you, because I found something after we talked. There's an attorney's fees provision in the encroachment agreement that I'd like to present. And so, I have reached out, her name was Amy.
Amy Howe.
I want to talk to her about that. And I doubt they're gonna budge on it, but I don't see how it hurts to ask.
Okay,
So we're tabling,
So,
voting
no,
on the
if you-
encroachment agreement,
Actually, if you would
Approve
approve
it, subject to,
execution, but allowing him, Tim Qualls to try and negotiate something different. But if it's a sticking point and we have to leave it in, I would recommend going ahead forward with it. Because they can shut us down on that road any minute they want to.
So just basically, if I may, Madam Chair,
Mhm.
what I'm concerned about is the language says you guys are responsible if anything happens with the pipe for constructing it. That makes sense. But it goes so far to say that if anything happens to those pipes while the road is being used, you guys are liable unless they're grossly negligent. So I want to talk to them about gross negligence, and then I want to try to get the attorney fees provision out. They're probably not going to budge. You all might not would budge if the tables were turned, but I'm at least gonna ask.
Okay.
so moved.
Okay, I have a motion to authorize the chairman to execute the FGT agreement.
Encroachment agreement.
Encroachment agreement with the proviso that there will be some discussion, but accept it.
Seconded.
Aye.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, then we'll concurrently start soliciting for bids to get you back some bids for next board meeting. So
Thank you.
it was a more expensive version, and so we scaled it back. It was like 330,000. I think Steve had a slight heart attack. So the recycled concrete, the estimate is $160,000. Still not cheap, but it's half the cost of what was originally proposed. And everybody approved it, so that was good.
So bids will be in the February agenda.
We're going to request and get those, yes. We'll make it a point that I give them time to review them, to put them in my report, so you guys can approve it on the next board meeting, so. Next big ticket item is milling and resurfacing in neighborhoods C1 and C2. We have also finished the construction plans. You got 1.25 miles of alleyways to be milled and resurfaced. We also have some minor drainage to hit the hot spots. I've been out there several times after it rains and the water's not getting to the inlet like it should. The total ticket, don't shoot the messenger, is roughly $550,000 for the milling and resurfacing of C1, C2.
I have a question, very quick quickly,
some quick-
I was reviewing the reserve study that has been revised, and for some reason, it gives the C1, C2 alleyways like the longest life of any of the alleyways.
Oh, that's because it anticipates it being done this year.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay,
told them it
thank
would be
you.
happening this year. That's why.
Oh,
Sorry
okay.
for the
I was
misunderstanding.
like,
So,
oh my
yeah, no,
God.
that's, no, it's not 15 years off. That means
Yeah, we
Right.
met with
15
Steve.
years
We told him
from
this was the
it
district's
being
next
done.
Okay,
project.
and
so-
then to the same point, Mr. Ruby's having a hard time accepting that that needs to be done because he feels that it may not be warranted. So I would like your professional opinion on whether C1 and C2 alleyways actually do need resurfacing at this point.
There are really bad sections and there are sections you can spare it a little bit longer. How we slice and dice it in the long run may be more expensive. If you're going to stop and milling surfaces and jump a couple hundred feet to continue. I'll tell you, I'd have to think about how best to tackle that.
And the other question is, our reserve study, it brings up a question about the reserve study because they anticipated that it would be, less than half of what the cost that you brought to us for resurfacing, for milling and resurfacing.
yeah, wasn't it like
136,000 or-
That's not surprising. When you start getting into the drainage and all that, that adds quickly, because that's real straight up labor work. You're gonna be raising structures, having to regrade all around them.
We have slotted drains to take the water to the inlets. We have some sections that have to be restored from base, sub-base and asphalt. There's a couple really bad areas. We're putting some ribbon curbs along the curves. The garbage trucks don't keep barking up the edge of your asphalt, though. I'm going to ask Greg to put certain elements as a separate line item. So when the bids come in, I can see pure milling and resurfacing, and then what I call the add-ons to make it better.
That's
And we
a good
can make a
idea.
decision in a couple months when it gets back with the bids, whether those add-ons are worth it, or we just simply want to do milling and resurfacing only.
Okay,
Do you
thank you.
suspect that the bidders on this will be one GC and he'll hire several subs for doing the drainage work and whatnot, and a different paving contractor more than likely?
Yeah, there's about 3 or 4 paving contractors. Everybody uses P&S Paving is a good example, Massey. So you may hire a general contractor to do some of the other stuff, but they'll sub out the paving work and they just don't have the equipment. They have the equipment to do milling, resurfacing type work.
I'm all for fixing the drainage. I still think that the pavement is usable for a long time, but that's just my opinion. But I understand there's a number of drains that need to be fixed
Mhm.
and they need special attention. And it shouldn't be the paving contractor probably doing the drainage work.
Now,
for obvious reasons.
we had discussed having some, not an expensive engineer, but having basically a contract manager from our perspective overseeing the work.
So once you start construction, whether or not you guys want to hire an inspector, I'm not sure if Infomark has construction inspectors or not, or you can sub them out, and they're not engineer fees. They're typically in the order
Right.
between $65 to $85 an hour to have an inspector out there to make sure that the contractor just goes unattended or unobserved, because that's a lot of money to be spending.
Mhm.
And
Based on prior experience, perfect idea.
Thank you.
so when the bids come in, you can make a decision at that point whether to retain a construction inspector to oversee construction, make sure it's
Okay.
done right, so you're not revisiting this 2 years instead of 15 years.
Okay. Great.
All right, Dark Sky Drive Swale, the plans are done in that one as well. I was gonna give it to Angel and Brett and see if they can hire a contractor to properly regrade that swale based on Greg's maneuvering around the fence, but still keeping within CDD property.
So none of the fence in the pool is on
It's
our property,
right-
right? It's right.
If you
on-
look at the survey, it's swale, 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 hits the fence, and then continues the other side. So we're literally gonna have to go, we just want to go around it, because ripping up the fence on that stuff, it'll just call, we're gonna have a room full of angry
Residents.
family members and everything else. So we're just gonna go around it on CDD property and get out of there. So those plans are done, that I'll give to Brett.
Okay,
and
and we're
Angel.
gonna try and do that before the rainy season hits,
Yes.
right?
And last set of plans I brought with me is the RV boat and storage area. Steve, they are at 60% level. I'll give you a full-size set of plans with a bunch of questions that you look at, since it involves a fencing guy. And I think Greg put on there everything that the county is expecting. versus what we were hoping to achieve for security.
Okay.
What I brought with me for you guys is half-size set of plans for all the 4 things we talked about, because I know the agenda package, it's really hard to see them. And I got full size of each that we talked about tonight. Last thing I'm out of here, the dog park, Toho Water Authority has changed their position. They will not do the tap
What?
into the water line, that we have to hire a contractor to do it.
Of course.
Yes. So we are going to find out exactly what they need, and I'll bring it back next board meeting.
That
But
was
yes,
their position the last time we tried to do one of these too. First they said yes, then they said no.
And
I
they
didn't do that.
changed. So
Okay,
anyways, here's my Christmas gifts early.
all right.
Early.
Cattails in the
Think you're late, sir.
stormwater pond, he did an excellent review of that, and maybe we can check with Catherine
you.
too on the best way to handle those if we need to. And I saw the Atlantic Pipe.
Yeah.
They started this
They've
week
been
at
out
the
several
estates.
days. Yeah.
Okay, so they've been
I
out.
told them to call me if there's anything extraordinary happening. I was hoping I heard the broken irrigation heads. It wasn't because of them, but they should be wrapping up this week for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Compared to what they're gonna charge a broken irrigation head is nothing.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. Any further questions of our engineer?
Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
thank
good God.
you.
How many times I gotta tell you, pay that bill? Come on.
Do I need to
What a
pause,
mess.
Dan, or
Well,
is it recording?
I'm showing that, if you see, there's the little,
Are we on mute?
I believe we're on
I'll
mute.
talk to you about it.
Let me go ahead and. I'm so glad we have this stuff here.
David,
Uh,
the
Okay,
additional
if you want
work
to move
Special-
forward.
on the resurfacing, what were the add-ons for the resurfacing
We
and
need to
milling?
talk
What were
about
the
the real
extra
property
things?
inventory. That you'd mentioned.
Okay,
Do whatever you gotta do. That almost
Thank
sounds
you.
kinky.
That way we'll get you on the record, Tim.
I never heard that one before. Could you expand? Are we still off? Unmute audio.
it
or
looks,
press and
it
hold.
says it's recording. It,
It says unmute my audio or press and hold the space bar to temporarily unmute.
right, but if you look at the little thing in the bottom left, it
Yeah,
says it's
okay.
not muted.
So we're good to go?
I sure hope so.
All right,
So does Angel. There's a minute
Okay.
coming off this.
it's now our district council's time to talk.
It is.
It is.
Are you
So-
done yet?
You all have my report. The contracts are done. Madam Chair wanted to discuss the real property inventory.
Right. Do we know what that's going, I mean, if it's just a summary of, I guess I need to know more about what it's going to tell us. Is it a run of the property appraisers database, which won't help us? Is it a run? Is it going to tell us what's in the deed or what parcels or what, or?
So the title company, I spent the morning talking to a gal who's been doing this for forever, since when you had to go to the courthouse to get this done, which I learned you still have to do in some counties, but not Osceola. But she said the property appraiser, the website is accurate about 90% of the time, and not just for Harmony, in general. They only do a partial legal. And so while they might start there, they're really going to look into the deeds and look at the Osceola County. The only record that matters, because it's a statute of frauds issue, is the deed. So, because a land transfer has to be in writing, witnessed by 2 parties, executed and recorded. So that is going to be the Osceola County clerk. That's going to be where the records are, and you're gonna want to look at the deeds.
Mhm. Okay, and so this report that you're gonna give us actually looks at the deeds, so it, like, each of these different deeds, and I was looking at a couple of other ones for this neighborhood C 1 and 2. It covers a lot of different parcels in there. So it will pull all of that information about all those parcels and not let one slip through the cracks. right?
Well, I can't, no title company is infallible. No attorney is infallible.
I
So
understand,
can't-
but I don't, I want it to be an independent, not based on the tax collector or the property appraiser.
Yes, so again,
Okay.
they don't rely on the property appraiser
Mhm.
records because they're only accurate roughly 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So they're gonna do a clerk of the court search.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're
And
gonna have
it's-
to get into the title. They start with the plat, but then they have to get into the deed,
And they look at.
and this is what they do.
And it's $600?
Well, that was what I was quoted whenever this was brought up last time. But I put it all on hold.
Okay, that was just 2 weeks ago, right?
No, that was at the last meeting last year is when I first mentioned it to you. I had called for SETI at that time. All I'm saying is I don't know that the price is still $600, but that is what they quoted me the first time I asked.
Okay, which was less than a month ago.
Yes,
Uh,
6
I
weeks.
don't remember.
Yeah,
Last
this is
meeting-
where we have the extra gap.
Last
'cause of
meeting
the-
last year, it was 6 weeks. I'll move to approve a not to exceed of $1,000 to allow for some play here and let the chairwoman execute the deal once we understand the price. Move
Second.
to,
Okay,
yeah, you get it.
For a real property search. Is that-
Real property title search or title, what are we calling this?
Yeah, I think that's right.
a
Deed
real
search?
property title search
Not to
What
exceed,
is owned by the.
to identify what is owned by Harmony.
not to exceed $1,000 and let the chairwoman execute.
I have a motion and
Second. I
Supervisor
just
Castle
happened
seconded it. All in favor?
to-
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Carries. We'll move forward, getting started on that.
I'll call Stuart.
Field managers report.
Nice to know where you fall in the pecking order, huh?
Good things
It's
come
okay, another meeting, he'll be right up top, so.
So it's pretty basic. B&B is they finally executed the contract. It took a little while. Their lawyer was looking at stuff, making sure language was good on their end. They should be starting the project February 1. That's what
Okay,
he
and
told
he's already identified the trees,
me. He's ready to go.
go.
So Vincent will be out, really making sure we're good there. I'll be out inspecting as well. UMax follow up today with them. He said it's on order
Oh, boy.
and then told me 6 to 7 months. It could be 6 to 7 months.
I'm sorry, for what?
It more than likely
UMax?
will be.
Oh,
That wasn't the deal that they originally presented.
No, so I think I explained it at the last meeting. So I got the quote from them.
Right.
But as the year ended, the dealer in Miami with Advantage golf carts actually sold or broke apart from Advantage golf carts. So they're still advertising on Advantage golf carts website as a distributor or a location, but they're no longer affiliated with them. So they can't go pull that inventory from Miami and bring it to Orlando. Which was not explained to me at all when I provided that. So he said he's gonna update me as soon as possible. The price obviously hasn't changed. It's just a delay. I think we're still okay. We as Infomart provided Vincent a work truck. So we still have the Harmony CD truck too, that somebody can use for the time being. And you're still fine, Vincent, with parts right now, correct?
How many do we have done?
We're just the mule, right? You get the tires on the mule?
Yeah, it's gonna be, replace the tire
Tomorrow. His credit card finally came in. by the
Plus
way.
the Bobcat and the LM are just out of service.
Correct. His credit card is in, so he's good now. So there's an update that's not in here. The tree inventory, we talked about it, we tabled it. For the time being, at the last meeting, from what I recall, B&B can provide this based on the pricing that was presented at the last meeting, but at this point, I don't necessarily know if a tree inventory is needed for any specific reason, unless you
Yeah.
all have a
And,
question.
and maybe we can get with him. The biggest part of heartburn I had with the tree inventory was that we'd be obligated to pay $2,500 a year for the software alone.
Correct.
So I'm looking into other possibilities. Maybe.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other things. I mean, I know he wanted to use it more to mark trees like green, red, yellow. Where
Mhm.
green was good, yellow was watch for next trim, red
Right.
was needs to be trimmed. And I think that's what he was trying to use that for, on top of giving you quantity and types of trees.
I may have another solution for
Yeah,
him.
well,
if he's
yeah, and I
willing
think
to
I
come.
do too. He's gonna be out here trimming just about every tree we have, right?
No, not right away,
Well,
no,
no, but over a period of time,
if you decide to use. them.
while he's out here trimming them, let's inventory them.
Right, but he has to log them onto some sort of system, and that was what the $2,500.
I understand what you're saying, like, just
But
write down, this
yes.
street has this many oaks, this street has this many sycamores.
Check out Google afterwards.
We're
Yeah.
gonna, that's what I was going to
Yeah.
try and work with him on and see if Google
Gotta be a
Earth
better way.
with pins and there's a way to do that.
So swim club pool, the sewer line was repaired, this week.
For how much?
$850.
Much
Versus-
better than the 48.
Correct. We are currently, I found out today, because they were working on the restroom there, there's some issue going on with when they flush the toilet. There's water backing up. I'm not a plumber, so bear with me. The pipe coming from the toilet up to where the handle's at, not the input water, the water coming in to the flusher handle. So we think maybe the seals are bad.
The where?
So you know how they have the
Oh, the chrome, yeah,
the chrome
Yep.
fixture, right?
Yep.
You have the water coming out,
Yep.
and then you have the pipe that's going down to the
Yep.
toilet, right? Well, when they let go of the handle, there's back
Water
pressure
sprays, yeah, and
coming
it comes
up.
back out of that a little bit.
Exactly,
We've had that problem before, the internal,
guts.
yeah, get all corroded from the acidic water.
And you
And
just
in the
replace
past,
the
we
guts.
just bought like 10 or 12 of them on Amazon and replaced all those units.
Vincent's gonna take a look at it. That's what I kind of thought was probably the gaskets inside have gotten corroded, you know, hard water or whatever, acidic water, or whichever one you want to go with. But
When you take one apart, all the metal will be eaten up, it'll be all green, the rubber is all gone, it's a mess.
And
right,
this,
so
this is at the lakefront?
there's that
No,
swim
swim
club.
club.
Swim club, okay.
Well, they have
So
to-
we
they have-
just need to do a replace. of the
Yeah,
guts
just
of the
but basically rebuild them,
Okay.
which we can do in-house, I believe internally, we're
Mhm.
fine with that.
Okay.
The last item on here, and then I'll talk about lakefront here in a second. The towboat repairs, I also got an update today from Jim. He's working on the bow and gonna do some final touches on the bow, then the flooring is gonna go in and should be getting pretty darn close.
Get it back.
Pretty darn close. I will say Jim has been, and I did relay this to the chairwoman, Jim has been very communicative. Like every time you guys see an update from me, he's sending it to me proactively. I'm not asking for it.
Mhm.
So, and he has been honest as well. He has some FDLE contracts, fish and game contracts that are kind of were already on his plate when this boat came in, that he's got timelines as well. Not that he's pushing the towboat to the side, but obviously economy of scale does
Right.
make sense when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars of state boats versus
A few thousand.
a home towboat. Lakefront Park, there was a Facebook post yesterday, with some caution tape put on a urinal. That caution tape was placed yesterday. We found that issue yesterday. The field staff did try to snake that toilet or that urinal to get it unclogged. Did not work. We did get a quote today from Tom Parrish Plumbing for $350 to get a better snake in there. I've already moved forward with it. And hopefully we'll have that up and going, but there is now an out of order sign on there that was placed by in-house staff, not outsourced staff.
Right.
And
What does that mean?
That was the Facebook.
Somebody-
post
Oh,
That we have, that the district outsources staff.
Yeah, it's.
It was just my joke, that's all.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That was hilarious.
Oh, on the plumbing issue, since we do have roots that are starting to invade some of our pipes, should we look at something like Rootex for an annual treatment for all of our bathhouses? Basically, it's a foam treatment. It will kill the roots that are in it, not the tree outside of it, and then it lays down a protective coating inside the pipe
To
to
seal
prevent
it?
the roots.
I honestly have never heard of it, but we can absolutely look into it. Is
Okay,
it something
if
that
you
we
can
can
look into
apply,
it.
or is it something that somebody else? has to
It's
apply?
something you can buy. Our staff can go ahead
So
and
it's like a
apply
drain,
it.
but it's more, okay.
You just
But it all
go
works
to
if
the
roots are inside the pipe, right?
part, well, it also coats the inside of the pipe and provides protection. It deters roots from coming into the pipes for a year. So, do you know anything about it?
No.
Sounds like miracle in a can.
It sure beats the repair bills.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's not, we did have one work order, I'm gonna call it a work order, come in, there was residents that were in attendance tonight asking about removing 2 oak trees by their home. they didn't bring it up in resident comments today, but I told them that is probably not going to be accepted.
2 living oak trees.
Can you give her this?
Between the curb and the sidewalk?
A little bit of backstory on that.
Yeah. So the issue was that we were made aware of that their lawn provider had mentioned, now they have jasmine minima growing underneath in between the sidewalk and the curb. They have a lot of stepping stones there. But that their lawn care provider mentioned that the oak leaves are very acidic, which is causing issues. And that they can't get the jasmine to fill in. There was some tree limbs that were closer to their home. I don't know who removed them necessarily, but those have been since, they have since been
Is
removed.
this the same resident who has so many oak trees? And she's saying the developer planted way too many oak trees?
Well, there are two, there's one definitely in her yard and one
On the corner.
kind of borders her property line and her neighbors. It definitely, it does, the trunk
Every
hangs more. in her
20
yard.
feet, we had it.
Yeah, this one's pretty close. It's on, oh boy, Butterfly Drive. And
It's Chip Chap.
yes, which is not their last name, by the way.
Oh.
That's a
so-
dog.
Yeah, so they wanted to replace them with a different type of tree if possible. And I mentioned to them that I don't think it's going to be, I didn't say accepted or declined, but I said that would be a board decision. So I'm making you aware of it
Mhm.
as more of a heads up if it does happen.
A question about the tree that was cut down, probably a sycamore on
Being
Blue
replaced.
Stem. Yeah, but I was told that weeks and weeks ago, and it's been that way for weeks and
Yeah,
weeks.
I followed up with Cervello and they said it should be within the next 2 weeks. They had
So are they gonna dig out the existing,
all that. I actually had to get a competitive bid because it was over $500.
and who authorized who removed it? The homeowner?
No, we removed it.
declining.
A previous homeowner, several ownerships before, had built up a planter bed around it
Yes.
and filled in over the
Yeah.
roots and everything. We don't know that that was the total demise. It could have been part of the waxy scale problem. But anyway, that tree was almost dead and limbs were falling on the sidewalk, large limbs were falling on the
I see.
sidewalk. It was a real hazard.
Yeah.
So
I
it
want to say it
was.
was removed in like July, August.
Yeah.
Around that time frame.
And then they delayed the replacement of it because
get the
I
rocks
told
out.
them, we're not gonna replace it until they get all of that stuff out of there and clean that up. They got it all out and it's been like 6
The
weeks.
homeowner, you mean, to
Correct.
take everything out?
Yes. the
Because they had
homeowner
put
would
it
be
in.
To clean it all out, take the paver, the little blocks
Borders.
out and everything.
It was unsafe to stump grind too. So there was a
Right.
delay in getting that out before they could stump grind. So that way they could then replant.
Okay,
going forward.
thank you.
So
But
that's
yes,
what's.
it is on the docket to be done. Not to go too much off the agenda, but the discussion today on the invasive plant species
Mhm.
control and mitigation. We need to really dig in on that because with the staff currently, even when we bring on to get 5 full, you're talking about a lot of work.
With the current staff,
It's
we
not-
can't do it.
Well, we can't keep up with the growth.
That's, yes, sorry.
We
I
wouldn't-
should
we wouldn't-
rephrase that.
I mean, Brad is doing a stellar job attempting to take on a monster that grows faster than he can take by itself.
Well, and there's a lot of, there should be more control in the summer, but when you have standing water and you have.
Yeah.
It's a safety issue there, because now you
Mhm.
have gators that do nest in those areas, you have moccasin increases, and they're in snake boots and all that stuff, but there are companies that we being the board, should consider looking into more on that control. The only caution I will have on the Brazilian pepper, and I think we need to find this out, is when it goes to seed.
It's seeding right now,
So we do not
It
grind
is
it
in-
now.
bright red.
If you
seed.
grind it now, you're dropping all those seeds off the trees.
No, we want
into
the
the-
birds to eat them and fly somewhere else. to-
Well, that's another problem. You want to grind when they're not seeding.
Right.
So just a FYI on that. Okay.
Anything
That's
else?
all I
Any
have.
questions? Okay, hearing no questions, we'll relieve Brett of his position.
Thank you.
Old business supervisor requests, anything from the board? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye, 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 aye.
All
you, everybody.
opposed, hearing no
Aye, aye.
opposition whatsoever, we're ready to get out of here.
Aye, aye.
Thank you, everybody. For your wonderful. All right, so I will,
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
good night.